This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There he is, locked and loaded and complaining already.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm your only guest who's on time.
I'm the host that's never on time. Anyway, how you doing? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's funny. Like I said, it's always about the temperature of the moment since we do 2 Acura Pembroke Pines reports a week and our RedRecover.com Inside the Paint. It's almost like, please win the night before a show, the game before a show. So let's look at it this way. When we did our Acura Pembroke Pines report on Monday, the Heat sucked. When we do it now on Thursday, a day earlier than usual, the Heat are great again. You cannot get a read on this team.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Well, I do.
Okay.
On Friday, I said, what's it called? Lay the points because they're not going to win. There's no way they're going to win. They were favored by 6.5 or 7.5 or whatever it was. I said, this team is nobody to be giving that many points to most teams. And then the next game, they were getting points. And I said, this is when you bet on them now. And they ended up even winning the game, overall, because that's who it's one of those things. I don't know what the number is, but if you're betting on the Heat and you're giving points, you must be losing a lot of money right now. Really.
This is a team.
You must be as bad at math as Travis is, but go ahead.
As your crypto buddies over there. This is a team that has shown it can be as bad as possible and as good as possible. And Big O, the concern here is this. The regular season's a back and forth, different opponent every other night. It all changes. Has this team shown us enough yet that it can put together 4 quality wins in a best-of-7 series against any of the top 4 in the East right now? That's the next level they have to get to.
Yeah, no. I think it's a mediocre team until proven otherwise. But my problem is with this entire stinking league is it used to be fun, Ira. We used to argue that, okay, this team was loaded, this team was loaded. They went up against each other. This team won, this team lost. Okay, but it's the regular season. But at least we got a feel for where they're at and all that kind of stuff. And we could argue about the how serious you take the regular. But now you're playing teams constantly that are incomplete. You're incomplete half the time. They're incomplete half the time. I don't know what I'm going to get when it gets to the playoffs. We might have another bubble year. And all these guys just come together and they just have a moment and they just make a run because you can do that. And because they are fundamentally a defensive-minded team, and I think if you're watching it every night, they are getting better defensively, I think, overall. And so now it's like it's really just a jack in the box. And I don't know what I'm going to get in the playoffs. But the beauty is, as a Heat fan, you always have to watch because that is a franchise that you never, ever underestimate.
No, and I agree. And they're playing playoff style. They're playing low scoring.
Yeah.
That all plays into playoff style.
You're right.
What doesn't play into playoff style is great floor command beyond the shooting, which you're showing now for those just listening on the podcast, but also usually you need great point guard play and leadership, and they're not getting that. And the Kyle Lowry thing is a story you can't not notice every night. And that's the problem is it's almost like when Kyle plays well, it's a surprise. So he had that really good finish against the Pelicans, scored 9 straight points, then didn't play the fourth quarter of the game after, then didn't play the fourth quarter of the game after. They won both of those. Then did play the fourth quarter in Charlotte. They lost that game. Then didn't play the fourth quarter in Cleveland. They won that game. So Eric Spoelstra can't keep pointing back to what now is 11 days ago against the Pelicans and going, well, you guys have a very short memory. You forgot what he did against New Orleans. No, we're old. We forget what happens 12 days ago. We want to live more in the moment. It's really curious with this team. The good players are playing well. Bam is playing outstanding. Jimmy's his metrics are career high percentage-wise when he shows up. But when he's on the court, he has been great. Tyler Hero certainly has taken a step forward this season. Maybe not as much as some want, but a step forward. Those 3 are fine. Everything after that's a crapshoot. It really is. Oladipo can be good. Oladipo can be terrible. Strus can not miss. Strus cannot hit. Caleb Martin can be MIA. Caleb Martin could be as good as he was against Cleveland. That's the problem. The Heat have so many floaters. The Heat have so many 50-50 propositions. You need more consistency for more players to survive at a playoff level in this league.
I was just looking for the quote from, I forgot the guy's name from ESPN. I think it's Thomas. He was on one of the basketball shows, and he thought that the Heat are having issues with Lowry, that it's obvious, and that they should move him. So what's going on with Lowry? Are we hearing anything? And what do you think? Are there any issues behind?
There were issues.
Lowry.
I don't think they're personality issues. I think they're stylistic issues and they're age issues. The stylistic issue is he's not the number 1, 2, 3, or 4, or maybe he's the number 4 option. Maybe. This is Bam's team because Jimmy defers a lot. Then it's Jimmy's team. Then it's Tyler's team because he likes to get him some shots. So all of a sudden, Kyle Lowry is your number 4 option. So he's not getting the ball in his hands as much. Part 2 of that is, though, he's 36 and looking 36. Yeah. He beats no one off the dribble anymore. Right. The beauty of Kyle Lowry had been when you did let him handle the ball more, he would get in the lane and he would spray the ball outside. But if you can't get in the lane and you can't beat your defender, you're not the player that he wanted. Right now, I don't want to sound too cold about this, Big O. I'm not so sure he's any better for the Heat than Goran Dragic was in Goran Dragic's last season with the Heat. Okay. And if that's the case, then that deal clearly put him at a net loss because Precious Achiuwa is having his moments again in Toronto. Yeah. Plus, even more than that, forget about who they gave up, that they gave up Goran and gave up Precious. The fact is, we talk about this almost every Acura Pembroke Pines report, the salary cap ballast they're left with Kyle Lowry, that $30 million salary, makes it very hard to maneuver. The one thing I don't understand is this, whether it's the ESPN report you're talking about or otherwise, is this. The thought that he should move on from Kyle Lowry. Who the hell is sitting there in a front office suite and saying, I can really use a 36-year-old point guard whose stats are in career lows and is going to make $30 million next year. Give me one of those.
It has to. It has to be like a star that is so disgruntled with the team, has 4 years left, that they're willing to then take it because they know next year will be. They can get out of it, and instead of being stuck with the guy for 2 more after that. And then maybe there's a clash of the head coach and the player, and they really love their coach. So they've got it. That we have to see that, what Riley has done for many, many years, finding that disgruntled star that they must get rid of. But the problem is when you lack assets, it's not that simple. Somebody else may want to give up. Hey, we'll give you this bad contract, but we'll throw in a first rounder or something extra. And then Miami has also got to put themselves in that position where they don't have a lot of chips to play with.
I would say there's one team that would be willing to risk the money and the age because of desperation, and that's the Los Angeles Clippers. They have to win now with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because you never know when those guys are going to show up.
He said he gave that example, by the way. He gave the Clippers as the example.
And if Steve Ballmer, if anyone has money to go into the tax, it's like, I know the tax are going to go broke. This guy's building a new arena in Inglewood. This guy has done nothing but throw money out trying to start his own television network.
My kind of owner.
Yeah.
My kind of owner.
Yes. Look at what the Clippers need. The Clippers need a point guard. Their point guard play with Reggie Jackson has been terrible. The Clippers need a backup center. They have no one behind Zubats. That might be one-stop shopping for the Heat. Take Kyle Lowry, take Dwayne Dedman. Give me a package of Twinkies back in return, but maybe even someone as good as a Norman Powell who can assume the 6th-man role that Tyler Hero had last year and that Victor Oladipo has been so uneven with this year. So I would keep an eye on the Clippers because, again, Big O, there are some teams where the money doesn't matter. I think the Clippers are one of the few teams where that's the case.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Here's something I'm intrigued about, and I was thinking about this. How much power and influence does Spo have in personnel? Because from the Whiteside, Dion Waiters, mess to, we're drafting Shabazz Napier, and then here's Danny Granger and the other poor guy that I kind of liked him, but he just Bob he did.
Bob McRoberts.
Bob McRoberts. So he did not fit. You know, Josh had a real problem. Oh, and then you see the whole Kyle Lowry situation here, and he's got to kind of inherit a lot of this stuff. I wonder how many of these decisions are above him. And, you know, the poor man just says every damn press conference, we have enough. When, you know, come on, bro. You know, I get it. You got to say that, and that's who you are and all that stuff. But we know you don't have enough. We know you weren't given enough sometimes. So I wonder, how much does Spo have control in personnel?
Erik Spoelstra's agreement with the Heat gives him personnel input. It is actually there in his agreement with the Heat. He has input. But he also knows not to overstep his bounds. He knows Nick Harrison is concerned about the dollars and the tax and the cap. He has to be careful there. He has to accede to Andy Ellisberg because no one knows the machinations of the cap better than the current impact and the future impact than Andy Ellisberg. And there is, of course, ultimate respect for Pat Riley's win now attitude. Number two of that is Erik Spoelstra doesn't criticize. He just doesn't. He's the opposite of Stan Van Gundy. If you're playing well with Stan Van Gundy, you might get criticized because Stan believes that brought out more in you. Eric's the opposite publicly. Privately, he's a lot different. Publicly, he'll not say that he's benching Dwayne Dedmon because
Mike McDaniel.
With this.
Same thing. Mike McDaniel. Yeah.
He just won't, and that's who he is, and you can respect that also. Yeah. So when you ask me, what kind of control does Erik Spoelstra have over personnel? I'd say, Big O, it's more this. He has ultimate control once the players are here. No one is telling him who to play and who not to play.
Okay.
So if he doesn't want to play Dwayne Dedmon, even though he's making almost $5 million, and wants to play Orlando Robinson till he's hurt, no one from the front office is going, no, you have to play him. If he doesn't feel comfortable with $30 million Kyle Lowry in the fourth quarters, there's no one running downstairs from the executive suite saying, hey, dude, we're paying this guy that kind of money. You got to play him.
Right.
No one has an issue with that. Same thing with Duncan Robinson. Think about this. You're Pat Riley. You signed off on a $90 million, $80 million guaranteed 5-year deal with Duncan Robinson. You'd like to see that pay off. It's your front office legacy. Again, that's the control Spoelstra has. Not a lot of coaches have that. A lot of coaches have you need to get this guy in there. You need to play this guy. Sure. You and I always use the word showcase. You need to showcase this guy. There's none of that. That's the good thing about being a Spoelstra, about being a Popovich, about being a guy whose coaching is beyond repute. You know, it's beyond question, where you can just let him do what he does. So I'd say that's the kind of personnel control he has. Yeah. But if Andy Ellisberg wants to offload salary for the tax for Nick Harrison, he will. Spo has no input. If Pat Riley sees something that he wants to do and thinks it's win now, even though it only might work for a year, maybe like Kyle Lowry, Pat Riley's going to do that at this stage in his career. Erik Spoelstra works with what he has, worked with a smile on his face post-game, and just moves forward. Again, I always use this example, Big O. But if you were to hook Erik Spoelstra to a lie detector and go, Erik Spoelstra, is your roster better than Boston? You know what the answer is. Same thing with Philly. Same thing with Boston. Same thing with Milwaukee. He knows what he has. He loves the good fight, and God bless him for that. And he will squeeze more out of the orange than any other coach this side of Greg Popovich. I agree with that also. But to go to your question, the full circle, but has he been dealt an uneven hand? Absolutely.
Yeah, because, if I'm the coach, I'd like to have some freedom. Like, wait a minute, Pat, seriously, we're going to sign Dion Waiters and he needs surgery? How does that help us? How are we going to give him a 4-year contract? Yeah. Whiteside, are you sure he's mature enough for this? Because he hasn't shown me enough leadership to handle this kind of money and the responsibility. Hey, Lowry's 33 years old. We're going to give him this kind of – I don't think I can use him the way we really need him. And we're going to pay him that kind of money. I need to be able to use him now. You need to – you got to – like, if I'm the coach, I got to walk in there and say, what the fuck did we just do with Duncan Robinson here? Because I can't use him. We got him on the bench. He's taking cap space. I'm playing with 14 guys instead of 15 guys. I don't think in that moment
you knew that. That's the difference, Big O.
No, at the moment you don't know it, but you got to have the freedom that 2 years later say, yo, guys, what are we doing here? Yeah, I can't. I don't have a 15th man. UD doesn't help me out. Duncan, you as a coach, you have to say, hey, and then you got me with these 2-way contract guys. No, man, I want a seasoned veteran in that spot.
Big O, your perfect example is right there. Eric Spoelstra will never say anything negative about Udonis Haslem. The guy's helped him win and his teams win 3 championships. I get that. Again, let's go back to the lie detector, okay? Yeah. Eric Spoelstra, who would help you more right now? Tristan Thompson or Udonis Haslem? Who would help you more right now? Boogie Cousins or Udonis Haslem? And he's telling us the answer because he's playing Orlando Robinson ahead of Udonis Haslem.
I know.
But again, this is why, people talk about nothing comes out of the Heat and this secret society. No, we know how this works. We know what they really think. You know what they really think. We talk about it twice a week in our Acura Pembroke Pines report. We know it. But Eric Spoelstra, there's a reason he's been with this team for 2 decades as a head coach. Because you also work with the team. Think about Stan Van Gundy, can be cantankerous. Think about Tom Thibodeau, can be cantankerous. There's a reason Stan has had all those jobs, Miami, Detroit, New Orleans. There's a Orlando. There's a reason Thibodeau has been in so many different places. Same reason there also, because they bump heads. Eric Spoelstra is a smart guy. He shows up like he will about an hour from now at practice, shoot around at MSG, and he'll say, okay, I don't have Orlando Robinson. I don't have Nikola Jovic. I don't have Omar Yurtseven. I got no backup center. We have enough. And we're ready to play the Knicks. That's who he is. And I think that positivity mostly has worked for the team.
Yeah, I'll roll it over to myself because obviously I will speak my mind. I had a program director that, I went to him and said, hey, I need to get a second producer to help me out to book guests. I got a young producer that's got maybe 2 months of experience, doesn't have a Rolodex. And, I go, I see all the other shows have 2 hosts or 3 hosts, and they all have 2 producers, except me, that I'm a solo host, and I only have 1 producer that's inexperienced. Good dude, but very inexperienced. Well, we can't do that right now. It's not in the budget. And then that's when I went Van Gundy on him. I go, so wait a minute. I got 15 sponsors. Only Joe Rose produces more money than I do. You got shows on the other station that have 3 hosts and 2 producers and no freaking live spots producing no money for the station.
Right.
So you're going to tell me a host with 15 sponsors can't get a second producer? Right there and then I knew they weren't going to pick up my option 11 months later. I walked out of that meeting and I told salespeople and I told my producer, that guy is firing me when my option was done. And why? Well, because I spoke my mind. I told him, you don't know how to run a goddamn station. Meanwhile, QAM's got 25,000 followers on Twitter. We got 97. They got 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. We got 17. Kiss my ass, QAM. All right, you can go ahead.
But what I would say is this also. But there's a professional level there comparing it to Spoelstra, and that's this big O. But you didn't then get on the phone and call every media writer in town.
I'll rip you to your face.
You handled it privately. Believe me, I'm sure there were times Eric Spoelstra sits in there with Andy Ellisberg and Adam Simon and Nick Harrison and Pat Riley and says, you're killing me here. But he does that privately, and I respect that. And that's why we have analysts like myself and Anthony Chang and Barry Jackson and Orlando Alzugaray, and we have to work through the reality of what's fact and what's fiction. And we know that. So a lot of times people in my comments are, Ira, you're wrong. Spoelstra said this. No, Spoelstra said this publicly, but you can see from his rotations what he really means. How dare you rip UD? I love Udonis as a person. I try to talk to Udonis at every practice and shoot around because he's a sage human being.
Yes.
But I also know from a team perspective, there's a reason he's appeared in 5 games for 38 minutes this season. He's on an honorarium contract.
Well, we know he's a cage rattler. That's what he is.
Matter of fact, Big O,
that's not who Spo is.
Yes,
he's not a cage rattler, so they keep him around to kind of be the cop inside the locker room.
And so today, we are going to go a few minutes from now, talk to Eric Spoelstra and saying, Spo, without Orlando Robinson, would you feel comfortable if you played Udonis Haslem? He will tell us this. I always have faith in UD, and UD is always ready, and he's going to be a guy who's on my list. Fine. 7 hours later, we're going to get to the game against the Knicks at MSG, and he's not going to play. We know that. You're not going to see the Sun Sentinel this afternoon write a story, Orlando Robinson injury opens door for Udonis Haslem. We know better. There is better odds that Haywood Highsmith at 6'7" will play center tonight, probably than Udonis Haslem will when Bam Adebayo goes out. We sort of know that. But God bless Spo for standing by his people. That's the kind of boss I want to have. Even if my boss gives me a bad review, I want my boss to go publicly and go, we stand by Ira. He does a great job. That's what you want someone to be. Not one of these grousing guys who's just throwing everyone under the bus. Sort of like Flores had his days like that, where he didn't think twice about throwing someone under the bus. And where did that get you?
Right. No, you're right about that. Yeah, you're right about that. All right, so we got Orlando Robinson out with the fractured right thumb. We got Depot doubtful tonight with the right ankle. I'm not going to overreact because he's been on a nice roll
16 straight games, yes.
Yeah. So he's played well. How serious is this ankle injury is what I want
You know what? The fact is that he went from questionable to doubtful shows that when he took his treatment yesterday, something was wrong there. It would seem to make sense for me not only to miss tonight, but this trip concludes Saturday in Milwaukee. Then they have 3 days off. Give the guy a week off. The guy is 30 years old, has played a month straight, deserves his time off. Honestly, has been terrible lately. So maybe this little break won't hurt him. Again, it's the lack of depth. Gabe Vincent's been somewhat uneven. Max Strus has been uneven. I would expect Jamal Cain to show back up with this team because I think they will need him. But again, that's the thing. The depth is not very good on this team right now because of the bad contracts. That's why you're carrying 10 undrafted players. You don't have the money for anything else. There is money misspent. Again, lie detector, I think everyone would acknowledge that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And Vincent's dealing with a right ankle injury too. So
yeah, he's been a little banged up. When I've gone to shoot arounds, he's not even in his warm-up gear. So you know he's just going on game nights. He's a gamer. I think he'll push through.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. You like them tonight? They're favored by 1 in New York.
Yeah, I don't think much of the Knicks. I think the Knicks are just a bunch of guys. I mean, Brunson does get in the lane. Randall can be incredibly up and down. He knows they have a 4-game trip, and they absolutely effed up in Charlotte. And to at least get 2-2 with Milwaukee at the end of the trip, this is the swing game. This could be the difference between 2-2, come back 6 games over 500, feel good about yourself, or a 1-3 trip, and the sky's falling again. Plus, for the play-in, you're 2 games up on the Knicks. You win this one, you move ahead in the season series. It's a big game for the Heat.
All right. By the way, I love going to a concert at that place. Even if you sit in the second level, that's the closest second level I have ever seen to the court. You've been almost every arena. Is there another arena that the second level is that close to the court?
The way they built the Garden, because they don't have that oversized first level, you're correct. But even more than that, it's just so freaking iconic. You got to admit, you walk in there, you breathe in the Garden.
And it's clean.
From the wood roof they have there and just the look. Matter of fact, now that the Celtics moved out of their arena, I don't know if there's even a close second iconic arena. You know, the Forum in LA is closed now when you think about great all-time NBA games. Yeah, this really is the sort of the center of it all. When I go to the Garden, there's not a moment I walk in that arena I don't feel refreshed as just I know I'm someplace iconic.
Yeah, it's such a cool place, man. And the acoustics, by the way, are also phenomenal. They are too for the LA Forum still, because obviously it's still good for concerts. And I've gone to several concerts there. To me, that's my favorite arena to go see a concert is the Great Western Forum. That thing, I mean, it is impeccable. But MSG, I will go to a concert at MSG any day of the week and twice on Sundays. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. And, of course, catch his work at the Sun Sentinel. More importantly, subscribe. Ira, enjoy the game, my friend. You be good.
At the Garden, no complaints. Talk to you on Monday in our Acura Pembroke Pines report. Thanks, Big O.
You got it, baby. Acura Pembroke Pines, the finest dealership in South Florida. By the way, the Integra voted #1 sports car of the year, man. That's a pretty damn good reward right there, or award, that is. #1 sports car. Now, if you want to get a great deal, get on down to 15601 Pines Boulevard, just off of I-75 in Pines. Tell them that Big O sent you. Go see Larry Schlossberg and Pat Nasto, Tony Stampone, all the great people out there making it happen at Craig Zinn's Acura.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.